Okay, so these two vessels are from completely different areas in the Eastern Mediterranean, and they illustrate really well the interconnectivity, the migration of objects and also ideas that existed in that area of the world during, in particular during the Late Bronze Age. So we have this one here, which is from the site of Medinat Ghurab in the Egyptian Fayum. It wasn't made there. It's a Canaanite amphora, a Canaanite jar, so it's made somewhere in modern day Palestine or Israel, and transported to Egypt, containing trade goods. This is another Canaanite amphora, another Canaanite jar, which is broadly similar. It has the two handles, the slightly narrow rim, and also this very sort of solid, slightly protuberant base. This is from Tel Farah in Israel, from Flinders Petrie's excavations. So these two objects are very similar. They serve basically the same purpose. But they were found hundreds and hundreds of miles from each other. And the Canaanite jar, the Canaanite amphora, during the Late Bronze Age in particular, it's the workhorse of Eastern Mediterranean trade circuits. It's what was used to transport bulk objects. So Margaret Serpico has been doing quite a lot of analysis of the kind of residue that are found in them. The residues tend to be resinous, either pine resins, things like that, but also oils and fat, in particular things like olive oil, things that would be used in huge quantities, maybe also wine. And then they would be transported in this sort of vessel and then decanted into slightly more manageable objects when they came to where they were required. We know that they were quite significant as trade containers for trade objects, also because of the Uluburun shipwreck in southern Turkey, where about 140 of this type of Canaanite amphora was found in the wreck, along with other trade goods, copper, ingots and beads and things like that had been used to trade around the Eastern Mediterranean. So they're fairly significant objects from the point of view that they are an import. As an Egyptologist, if we find them, that tells us something about what was brought into Egypt and where it came from. There are also different types. If you break a little piece off and look at the fabric, there's been quite a lot of recent research into where these fabrics might actually be from, trying to tie the place of manufacture to a specific geographical region of Syria, Israel or Palestine. And that can also help to create a sort of map of where these things are made, where are they shipped from, and where do they end up. Of course, these jars in themselves are quite useful. It's not sort of a case of use and throw away. Just because you've emptied this of olive oil, you're not just going to throw it out. You might reuse it repeatedly. So some of these objects might also have traveled around within, for instance, Egypt, to different points containing different things. So it's a very useful object for illustrating migration of objects. Of course, the amphora, this is the Canaanite amphora. The Egyptians had their own style of amphora during the Late Bronze Age. Tend to primarily be made in quite hard marl clay. But this idea, the idea is very similar. You have the handles for ease of carriage. You have a fairly narrow rim, so it can be closed off effectively. But mainly, this is a really good example of how extensive the trade network during the Late Bronze Age, and also slightly later, was in the Eastern Mediterranean.